Hello all, welcome to another edition of Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 143 for April 19, 2024. This is no particular topic, it's an open lines Friday, but you are welcome to bring up whatever it is that you want. We get together and do this every week, every Friday at this hour, 10 a.m. Central Time. And as we've said before, it's all skill levels welcome. We get together and talk about Plant an App and coding in Plant an App and the projects that you have going on. All these are recorded, put out on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantanap. If you haven't already, you should subscribe and hit the alarm bell and make sure to re-listen to every episode at least 3 times. This is the agenda that we run. We do introductions, say hi to the group, and then we'll go around the campfire. We always do first call and submitted topics, and then we get into a variety of other things depending on where the conversation takes us. After an hour or so, we'll do Afterglow. We turn off the recording, raise a virtual adult beverage, and just enjoy each other for a few more minutes off the record. So do engage with us. It's a meeting format. Jump in, show and tell, get involved. If you've got noise going on, use the mute button. We've recently figured out how to use the raise hand button. It's another great feature of Zoom, groundbreaking. You can submit questions and topics in advance. Use this QR code to do that, or look in the emails that we'll send to you that will oftentimes have that. That's another topic we'll hit on today, emails we send to you, and my apologies for any duplicates that you might have gotten. And with that, hello all.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Good
Hello.
morning, everyone.
Did anybody get duplicate emails?
I did.
Yeah,
3 each time.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's me. Sorry about that. I hope I didn't chase away too many people.
Not a problem, not a problem.
We have been working on, and I think at some point we'll show you, but a new emailer. In the past, I've been sending them from Zoom, and now we're working on being able to ramp up our outbound email efforts using our own tools. And I thought I'd done a really great job of controlling it and preventing duplicates, but what it turns out, I'm running a job that runs every 10 seconds, and I didn't check the don't run if running, ignore whatever the trigger is, and so I think the actual sending thing was running multiple times because because the first one hadn't finished. So on big batches, it was just triggering again and again. So unfortunate, but I think I've got it solved. Hopefully we'll cut that out. Anyway, the adventures in low code. Did anybody come with a first call today?
Hi, Dale. It's Jerry here.
Hey, Jerry.
I'm driving, so I'm going to attempt to pose my challenge and then go back on silent mode and just listen.
Okay.
In modern versions of Plant App, our grid, our listing view on a responsive website, I'm being asked when we reduce the screen down, can we do something different with the grid other than offering a scroll bar at the bottom of the grid on mobile devices or just in a responsive mode? And in looking at some other websites and some other technologies, I saw where some programmers, when a grid gets reduced down, instead of scrolling the columns, they go into a vertical mode, very similar to what our cards looks like. So my question becomes is, I know I can have cards selected and listing view selected at the same time. It offers me a button at the top to switch back and forth. I think you might know where I'm going with this. Is there any way to auto jump to cards mode if the resolution drops to such? That's my question. So I'm just basically trying to make grids more responsive and mobile friendly. That's my question. If anybody's got input on that, I'm all ears. Thank you.
Well, first of all, the question absolutely makes sense. And I'm not sure. This sounds like something that that we used to do well in Bootstrap 3. Does anybody have any feedback on that question while I'm looking around? So here's one that you can switch back and forth the button. So you got the buttons to be able to choose back and forth between data table and card view. Let's look at the settings.
So yeah, there's the new responsive settings section at the bottom of the views tab. So it was in a different place in BS3, and at first in BS5 we didn't have it, and then it was added here.
So underneath the views, responsive settings, I'm just being verbal so Jerry can catch it. So I'm picking desktop, excuse me, data table for the desktop view and cards for the default mobile view, and I'm going to save that out and then refresh and see what that does. So we have a normal view in widescreen. I'm going to reduce it down, and I'm not seeing it switch automatically. It might be in mobile. So let's actually, and when I refresh the screen in mobile, it goes to a card view. So didn't happen just changing the size, but if you would have accessed it from the right device, it would do that. And I should have done this before I set the. I'll change that and try again. Yeah. So I think there's a simple answer to your question, Jerry. It definitely works. Thanks for asking it, because I wasn't aware that we'd even done that. So look in your data view responsive settings. And save it that way because that's the way that makes sense. Yeah, easy enough. Okay. Anyone already using those? So just one of those things that there's so much in our product and knowing where it
Dale,
all.
that's awesome, and thank you for that. I've merged successfully on the freeway, so I'm safe for a moment. But I just wanted to, yeah, it seems like it's kind of common and kind of cool to be able to go from a column and row display to what we call the cards display automatically on some of the new responsive websites, and just knowing that there's a possible option out there just makes me happy. So I'll move out of the way and let real customers jump in and ask some great questions. Thank you again so much.
Drive safe, Jerry. And yeah, I keep close watch on Jerry's feed, and he and Clunker are out and about. So this is probably the safe part of what he does, driving down the freeway. If you haven't watched, Clunker is an Elsinore. What, 1970 is it, Jerry? Anyway.
1974 Honda CR125, and yes, we're racing motocross in the luxurious town of south of the border, which is exit 1 on I-95 at the North Carolina-South Carolina border. Hence, south of the border is the South Carolina side, and that's where we are. And Dale, just to your point, some would think that's close to home for me. That obviously I'm not in Texas today, but it's still a 5.5 hour trip, and I'm halfway there. So I'm going to be listening in and enjoying everything you guys got to say. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Take it easy. All right. Someone else with the first call.
Yeah, this is actually related to small screen formats. Good morning, everybody. Just wondering if anyone else has experienced using, I have a form that's on, set up and it works fine, except somebody tried it on an iPhone and it just didn't do anything. The go button just didn't do anything. Has anybody seen that before? Now, again, I've not tried to tune this for responsive. It's not really set up for mobile by intent at this point, but it was just curious to me that the button was kind of dead.
So, I have an app that I use. It's in conjunction with my church, and we do. But it all runs on whatever phones that they're on. So this is a plant and app form, and one of the I haven't had any problem with what you're talking about, um, that it just wouldn't run. What we do run into issues with is that if you click a button and it goes to a different screen, and then users use the back arrow of the browser, that button isn't enabled by browsing back. And I mean, the page is still in a disabled state, like the button had been pushed, and you have to refresh the page. But aside from that, we haven't. So if it's not that, I would suspect, I would wonder about what's going on at the JavaScript level. If you have um, any JavaScript that might be failing, or failing just on an iPhone, that ends up causing issues.
Mm. Yeah, like I said, it's not been, it wasn't initially targeted for mobile, nor has it been tested on mobile. So somebody just, somebody sent in a support request and, oh, it's not working. And I saw that they sent their email from an iPhone. I'm like, So I tried it. Yeah, it doesn't work, but it just doesn't work because it's on, I'm saying iPhone because that's what they happen to use. It may be at that point any mobile device, but
Yeah.
I was just curious if anybody else ran into that.
So I'm wondering, when you get support tickets, is your first question, and what version are you on, and what hardware are you on? You guys got to get tired of me for that one. What version are you on? It's always my
Yeah.
question. All right, I guess we'll be on the lookout for that one. You just in general suggestions you might try. Uh, I mean, I think I would publish a very simple form, with just a button on it that does something, and on an off page, and see if you can see if that fails. If that succeeds, then there might be something specific on your page, some JavaScript or something like that. Also, at the theme level, there could be things. So start with a simple button on a like a page builder theme, and see that it works, and then start changing things until it doesn't.
Yeah, that's very good idea. But yeah, we'll do.
But yeah, I understand. I mean, I understand. Hopefully, if you encounter somebody that had the issue, that would be much better. Go right to the problem. Cool. All right. Other first call. Now we're up to at least third call.
I don't know whether this is a first call or a ghost story.
Okay.
So I have I use session variables quite a bit in one of my apps. And so I have a database field, I do this, do that, make it a session variable. Everything's good. There was one field that I could not get to go to a session variable. And the field name, I'm wondering, this is my question, does the field name have anything to do with it on some sort of reserved list or something? The field name is account number, all one word, capital A, capital N. So when I went to set that as a session variable, it simply would not work. However, strangely enough, if I set it to be a cookie first, then read the value from the cookie and set a session variable from that cookie value, it worked. Didn't rename it, didn't do anything other than made it a cookie first, read the cookie, set the session variable from there. So, like I said, not sure if that's a ghost story or if I'm running into something unknown, undocumented, or anything like that.
So nothing jumps to mind. We have had issues before where certain names of tokens were unexpectedly reserved, and like I think one time it was event or even a or something odd, and not in the not speaking about session, but just a token itself. I've never heard of that one. It seems unlikely, but then
Guys, Jerry here. I've seen this before a little bit. It may or may not be related, but I came across trying to use the word state, STATE, as a token or a session at one time, and I was definitely conflicting with something inside of Planta app. Bogdan and I actually sorted this out. This years ago, by the way, and so there is the likelihood that you can grab a reserved word or a reserved something, a namespace or something deep into C# or deep into Planta app source code or who knows where, and have that conflict. Account number seems kind of unreasonable, but it does also seem awfully popular. But yeah, I would go on your own theory and just change the name of it real quick and see if that works, because it has happened to me before that just the name of the token sent the system kind of a little weird.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, Jerry. Thank you. The odd thing to me was the fact that if I set it as a cookie, it worked. First of all, it went as a cookie perfectly, no problem. If I then read the cookie into a session variable, that worked no problem. It was going directly from the field name to a session variable that was problematic. So odd.
That's why this is a ghost story.
Sorry, I should have brought it up later.
no rules about that. I don't know how fast I can set up a reproduction of that, but let's give it a try. I'm just going to call it number here on just to keep the things. What kind of values did you have in as an account number? Is it just a
It's
number?
an integer field.
Great. And then we'll add a button that it would be set session. And so we're going to do a slow here. Syntax look anywhere like correct?
Yeah, so far.
All right. And then I'm just going to let that end out, and then we'll add another button that will say session, and that's going to be Set. Screen. All right, let's see what that does. So I'm going to say 666 is my set session, and then say get session, and it gets it back. So account number is not inherently a bad session setter, interestingly enough.
Dale, make sure you set the case of the account number name exactly as he had it. I know most things are not case sensitive, but deep into C#
Did
and
I?
into method calls, it can make a difference.
It is spelled with 2 C's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Mhm. So does that look right to you, Matt? Matching?
Yeah, that's exactly what
Okay.
I have.
So, yeah, some there. Ben is asking about the token, and the token is just number.
Was your field also called account number?
Yeah, in my case, the field in the database was called account number.
All right.
So
It could be setting up a conflict, absolutely.
So your forum field was also called account number.
So let's do that.
I'm not sure that you're going to be able to reproduce it like this. And first of all, because the account number, I wasn't putting it into a form field yet, but when I changed context, I went from, hello, did that not work?
Maybe he did.
We captured it.
Mhm.
So we're setting a session of something, and it fails. Excuse me, it did. I mean, we don't see any error, but it did. When I do the did I change the get session? That wasn't.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Got half a thing. Nope,
No, that's correct. Yeah.
You're good. Yeah.
Okay, so get session doesn't do it. So the name of this thing in combination. So this variation. Sorry, too much scrolling. This variation doesn't work. Setting the session of account number. So then when you set it to a cookie and then use the cookie as something else, you're using an intermediary. So let's see if we do this, where we set dummy equal to account number. We're just moving it into something else and then using dummy here. So it's a 2-step, which is probably what you're succeeding with.
Right.
Interesting.
I think that
Might be the restore side of it is the problem. Well, I don't think. What do you think, Patrick?
I think the fact that, I mean, I know that we're looking at a session variable, but I think the fact that the variable has the same name is what's causing the issue. That's
Wait a second. I'm not putting it anywhere. I'm putting it in the wrong place. Right? It wasn't going anywhere.
oh, that's right. Yeah. So we did have an issue there that we didn't see. Yeah.
So that
It is
worked.
working. Yeah.
So let's go back to the original set session. And we're going to undo this. And that, so we're just putting it directly into account number. Right? So no,
Yeah,
we
okay.
haven't captured it. There doesn't seem to be anything special about that in just a raw way. So something else is going on in your case.
I apologize. Right, of course, as I should have been paying attention, our customers started pinging me with an urgent issue. I apologize. So
So you
what
missed
did you
it?
guys conclude? Well, I don't
Yeah.
have the details.
All right. What we concluded is we have not captured this issue. That in my reproduction, I had a coding error when we were trying to get it back onto the screen. The create update token to read the session variable was not going. When we changed the name, I had left this as saying number, so now I fixed it and it says account number. So we have we are taking from account number and putting it into account number, and then in the set session we are taking it from account number and putting it into the session account number. So, and was it set session that you were using as compared to say get or session or get or
No,
cookie?
it was set session. It was set session. And it was your token value was set up. I've got to go find it, but yeah, it was set up like that. The account number in quotes in that case was coming right from the database. So oddly, the odd thing is the same technique I use for other session variables, it worked fine. That was what threw me, you know.
So we haven't been able to demonstrate that a failure. Doesn't mean that there isn't one when you dig deeper, and if you figure it out, I'd love to hear either way, whether it's
Yeah.
You found something that was getting you, for example, it would be possible that your account number token could have gotten another value in between. If I mean, for example, I'm just thinking things that could happen, right? If you've got code above that sets like your account number token to something else, and then I don't know. It doesn't seem to be a hard coded issue.
Okay.
On the thing that Jerry mentioned earlier, though, for example, state that is certainly one of those things that will get you. I've got a couple of other, and I will look it up here. There is just since we're on the topic, I will find it if I can. Too many windows. Anyway, I'll mention if I can get to it on one of my other screens, but an area where a variable will do something other than, let's see. I haven't reported this. This is a I'll put it here on the screen. If a text field is named length, all in lowercase, a form won't submit. So interesting oddity. Somewhere in there, length gets created as code. So anyway, just little things are possible, and trying to figure out. Every now and then you run into something like that. So good. That was a good first call. Anyone else before I pick something out of my topic list? Okay. Yeah, just checking in. Anyone working on the beta version of 126? Anyone with any feedback or success? While you're thinking about that, one of our regular testers, Mark, I hear he's traveling internationally during this beta window, so we completely missed his feedback on that, but I hope he's having fun. Internally, we're doing a lot with 126 and having great success with it. There's lots of things going on during the upgrade, and that really is where our internal efforts are, just making sure the upgrade is seamless. We have a couple of things that we're working out on that, but what we found is once we get to 126, that it's very stable, and that the many changes that have happened in 125 and the good things that we've added in 126, that they're working reliably. Okay, I'm going to go on. This is a good one. Something that I'm sorry, this is important for you to know. This is something that Patrick discovered this week. We kind of tracked it down and came up with it. But there is a performance issue that you should be aware of. We've got a ticket into development to resolve it. But if one very common scenario is that you might put many listings, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a page, and you put them in different tabs so that dividing it up nicely and logically. What we find is that if you have these two things turned on, that we're getting the listings are loading too often. So if you have in your tab settings, if you're persisting the URL in the bookmark, persist in URL bookmark. So that means every time you change tab, the bookmark in the URL changes. And then if in your listing, if you have sync with URL turned on, what's happening is the listing is watching the URL, it sees the URL change, and then it's reloading the listing. And if your listing is small, you won't even notice. But if your listing is big, you'd be putting a lot of you'll have delays for your users and putting a lot of burden on your server. So we'll end up fixing that. But in the meantime, if you have that scenario, you should be aware of it and realize you can solve it, right? You can turn off sync with URL. You can turn off persist in URL bookmark. Either one of those will make it happen. Has anybody encountered that?
Well, I'm wondering if I have, because I've got, like you said, pages with lots of listings on them, and I've got performance issues. So now I'm going to go back and check and see, because you can't see them, obviously, all of them, because they're hidden. I'm going to go back and check and see if that is necessary, and if not necessary, if I can turn it off and it makes a performance difference. Thank you. That's a good one.
Sure. So in order to be able to see it, I'll just demonstrate. This tab is set up that way when you change tabs. So notice that when I change tab, we'll get the tab name will appear on the bookmark. That's what we're talking about. And then I have turned on the Inspect Console network, and you can see that we get 2 API calls here. That's because I've got a grid on this tab and a grid on this tab. And when I change tabs, it'll call it twice again, once for each of those listings. And even if I go to a different tab that doesn't have a listing, it calls it twice again. So every change, you're reloading those grids. And if you simply go to your tabs, and now I say simply, the settings, if you turn off persist in URL bookmark, this avoids the problem. You may have a true issue where you need that setting turned on. So I'm not just saying, oh, go turn it off and everything will be fine. But if you're able to turn that off, notice now that as I browse that I'm not getting any network calls out to refresh those grids. So those grids remain static. I guess that there's a possibility that you're relying on that behavior, that the grids refresh. So again, that's one of those things you're going to want to pay attention to. We have some settings when we went from Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 5 that we still, again, there's tickets into development to resolve to make sure that, I mean, you should be able to refresh a grid when you move into that tab. That would be a really great behavior that you would, if I go to this tab, do I want it to refresh? Do I not want it to refresh? Because maybe the use case is that it needs to be up to date as they go into it, not as the page loads. But yeah, that integration in Bootstrap, in our Bootstrap 5 implementation, didn't get done. Patrick, you were acting like maybe you had feedback for me.
No, that was yeah. I was gonna say the same thing. Was that we want that ideally we do have that feature that where you click on a tab and it refreshes the listing that's in that tab only if you want it to be refreshed, but not everything.
So I'm going to turn that back on. This is my example for the developers to look at. The integration for that is here, and notice we've got it marked as legacy only. In other words, it works in the Bootstrap 3 version, but this checkbox should force it to load when you go into that tab, and that is not. Load when tab is activated. So this would completely defer loading the grid until you go to that tab, which would be a great performance thing. Just kind of leave a shell there and only appear if somebody went to that tab. And then this is to force a refresh every time that you go to that tab. So those settings, if they were properly implemented by us, would be great performance things for you. But anyway, just wanted to mention that as a possible, you might be able to change some settings and get a little better performance if you don't need that persist functionality, or the sync. You alternately, you can turn off the sync with URL functionality, and turning off either one of those removes the issue. Okay, moving on. I added something here in Campfire this last week, and this is a health check thing. And so this is campfire.plantanop.com. Anyone who participates in this meeting gets full access to this, but if this is something that anyone can download, so it comes in the form of a workflow. But when you run it, you get a brief message. In our upgrade, I mentioned upgrade issues with version 125. Along the way from our recent versions, we have things called namespaces that lets you divide your workflows or entities or into logical groupings, and so and tokens into logical groupings, and so we have these namespaces. There's a bug somewhere along the way that allows duplicate namespaces with the same name to be created, and so this thing just tests for it. So if you this workflow doesn't do anything, it doesn't take any action to fix anything, but you could download it, import it as into your site and run the workflow, and you'll get either a pass or a fail indication. And if you've got a fail indication, a support ticket, that's something we could help you sort out. And yeah, so you can tell whether this issue exists for you. That's the mention of Campfire. Last time we talked about using a development environment when building a production app as a suggestion for a best practice in our low-code development playbook. The idea is we're developing internal procedures for our developers to try to make things be great for the projects that we deliver. We just wanted to share these best practices with you and discuss them, get your ideas. So we kicked around for a little bit last week the idea of a development environment when building a production app. Part of the idea then is that you can create a clone of a production app to try things like doing an upgrade or changes or whatever purposes you might use a clone for, but you want the clone to come up and not do production things. If you have for example, a site that sends out a bunch of emails and you create a clone, you don't want it to send out a bunch of emails to your real users from the clone system. So trying to figure out how to do that well was the topic. And we had a number of topics and suggestions using the domain root URL domain root token to ensure, for example, that links within your system, system stay on the system, don't accidentally traverse from the clone system to the production system. That's a best practice. But the idea came up that we could use that same the actual domain root of production to figure out and create a token to say whether or not an environment is production. And this was Ben's suggestion. We give credit around here, so that you could have a token that says whether or not it's production, and immediately a system coming up, because it's on a different URL, would realize it's not the production one. We talked about the need for disabling automations to not send things out. We talked about if you had remote databases or database connections to techniques to make sure that you don't interact with these other databases. The ability, this global visual reminder that a red flag, this is the clone environment, so people don't get confused if they're on clone or on production. Some other way to handle email. So that was the discussion from last time. You go back and play that because all these are recorded and out on youtube.com/plantinap. But I asked if you had time to think about it and you had any other ideas, things that would be good to put in this category so that we can make a great best practice. So with that, did anything come to anybody or between then and now? I take it from your silence, as they say when you're selecting a jury, that you all agree with all these things and you have nothing to add. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Don asked about a tutorial for using tabs, and I don't know that we have a tutorial for using tabs, but tabs are really quite easy to explain, and so we could answer that question now if you're inclined to to do that, Don.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. So I'm going to go back to where I was working here a little while ago, um, in this area about tabs, and if I can find it, same screen we were on just a minute ago. So I've got, nope, that's a different one. Tell you what, we'll do it this way. Where is it? Okay, so if you look up, this is one that's already done, so we'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll add one more thing to it. If you look at tabs, if you put a tabs module on a page, and then examine the properties, you can click new tab to add a tab, and each tab, it gets to have a name. You'll see we have overview and users one and tabs that corresponds with these names of the tabs that you see. And then if you open them up, there's the title. You can have conditionals on them, similar to the actions can have conditionals. But the main thing that you're looking for is select modules. What modules show up on this tab? And so if we wanted to have another module, let's say that we'll put this into edit mode, and we'll have another form that we want to add on this page. We're going to have, we'll just add an action form. And we'll be incredibly lazy and just make this action form be something that be a contact us form. So I'm going to use the contact form template just so that we have a form pre-built for us automatically. And so we'll go back and take a look at the page. So what we have is a new module that's been added, and then we want it to appear up here. We're going to have a contact us tab that we're going to add right here. The way that you do that is you manage the tabs, and I'm going to do that in a new tab. And I just say us. And then this is why you name forms, right? Because it says we've got our new action form that we've added, and doesn't have a good name on it, but I'm still going to add it here. And that's all that's required. Once I save this and refresh my page, we're now going to have a new tab called Contact Us, and the module that I put there is loaded there. So just very simple. At least that's the theory. And then I went out of edit mode so we can see it more simply. It loads without a lot of flashing when you're not in edit mode. So it's just a way of putting a module inside a tab.
So the idea is, or the process I should say, is you create form, listing, et cetera, on the page, just drop them into pane somewhere, and then drop the tabs module on there, and then create your tabs. And then the idea is that the modules don't show unless you've clicked the tab.
Exactly.
Got it. Seems simple enough. The job that I'm doing is a multi-step form where each tab is a section of the form in effect. But I thought, since the forms are different, like they're all going to be one person filling out a form. It's going to be a job application, but it's going to be a rather complicated job application. So we thought it would be best to have it done in sections, and they may want to jump back and forth, fill out what they can, maybe even come back and if they need to go get some information. So I was thinking that we would do it where I would create an auto login for the person, because it's not meant to be a regular user of the site, but just somebody that's for a short term while we're filling in the form. We want them to have continuity, session continuity, I guess. And also I thought that it would be easier to use the built-in ability that only users who created a record would be able to see their record in order to show the content of the of the fields that they've already filled in when they go from tab to tab, bouncing around. So that was the concept that I had, and instead of using the technique to link forms together and then have one monster form, I would actually have several tables, several records, and forms that would fill them out, and then use tabs for it. Does that sound like
A good use case?
right approach?
It does.
Fantastic.
I wanted to point out a couple things. So in Low Code Cafe 153, I worked on this. I put the link for the connected forms in for this thing into the chat. But this is the idea that you could have a form, and when you're filling in the form, first of all, you click the next button and it goes to the next tab. But also, if you have you could notice there's no ship to showing up here. But if I click that, then the ship to tab appears. So being able to make forms, tabs appear depending on the condition of the forms. It can be a little bit tricky, but at least you have a working example to look at here on
Yeah.
Campfire. So that's something to look at.
Great.
And
then,
I added, Dale, I added the link to that YouTube video as well. There, so
perfect. Thank you. So might be worth a watch if you're diving into that project. The other thing to know is that, for example, I'm going to look at this this contact us form here. I'm going to edit it. I want to point out that there is an action that lets you move between forms. So I'm going to say move just as the name of a button. And if we look at the tab handler, at the click handler rather, there is change tab and continue execution, change tab and stop execution. So if we pick one of these, we can say, well, on this tabs module, I want to go to the overview when you click the button. And so now when we're looking at this, and we have a new button, the move button, just I click it and it jumps. Of course, it's required. The move button navigates, so you can either advance people depending on button clicks, or they can navigate themselves between tabs. So just part of the tutorial there.
Ah, okay. That brings up a good point. So if they fill in some fields and see that there's tabs, then they go and click on another tab before any kind of a button, then they haven't saved I haven't saved their information in those fields. So I would lose that information. Would that be correct? Unless the tab clicks force an action on something. I don't know. Could, yeah.
I think we covered that on in that same one. There is the ability to put actions on tab changes, and I think that's actually on the form itself. There are tab events that you can make on the form. So if they leave the tab, you can add actions. So you could save it for them. You can just add an action here to write the record or do whatever you want. And in the same way on tab enter, you have actions. So when they come back to it. So by default, without doing any of that, the form remains on the page, but not in a saved state. So if they come back to it and click the button, that's fine. But if you need to capture that for them automatically, then you can use those actions. Again, I think a rewatch of that one episode that Patrick has linked will probably get you along.
That makes a lot of sense. Great. Thank you.
All right. So we've backed up and now we're moving forward again. If I can find it. So we didn't have anything more on development environments unless something's occurred to you. But we have a draft about best practices in SQL queries. And so our playbook, internal playbook, looks something like this. And so, why is it important? Readability, maintainability, debugging, to have nice organized SQL queries, being able to collaborate and to make it look professional if we're going to deliver something and so the client opens up a query and can't understand it, or that it looks like, a horrible mess, then, that's a professionalism issue. So we came up with a lot of hows, consistent indentation, indenting logical blocks, aligning joins, aligning columns, indenting subqueries, adding comments, lots and lots of functionality. And so this becomes our internal standard. And then I thought about what might be fun. We've heard us talk about Bazinga, and I wrote up I created a Bazinga assistant. This is our AI product. I created a Bazinga assistant to say, here's a SQL query that I have, compare it to our standards. And I just copied the standards out of this list of things. That's the instructions that I gave our query. And so then I fed it one of my queries that I'm looking at, and it gave me a D, because I asked it, give me a grade A through F, and it thought that my query was pretty ugly. But the main thing is it's also giving me the SQL that corresponds to those, to clean up my query. And so now this is not only a tool for did I write it well, but it's also a tool for cleaning it up after the fact. So if you have access to AI or to Bazinga, this is either way you could get your SQL queries cleared up and cleaned up without a lot of effort, but also I took it to the next step and said, hey, add some comments. I found one of our particularly thorny queries internal to the product and said, gee, this looks ugly. I'll try this. And it cleaned it up. But then I said, can you add comments? And it did a nice job of explaining what was going on in the query, just kind of interpreting based on what was there. So the AI is an approach that can be used to clean things up, but the topic is jumbled SQL or clean SQL. So anyone with for, against, or I don't care for good practices in SQL queries?
I'm kind of really particular about putting my the actual SQL words in caps. It's just something that I've always really liked doing and like how it looks. And if I see a query that's not like that, I tend to change it.
Oh,
I think it
it's a
makes
good-
it makes it more readable.
We didn't include that as an idea here, did we? And this one does seem to be, but that's a great idea to add content here. spelling is also comes into play, but I'm gonna update that. So on the chat, I get a confirmation that at least an agreement that that's important. So I'll fill this out to do that. Any other comments that should be part of a good practice? All right, so we've coasted into the end of our hour. I'm going to call it there. We appreciate that you've taken the time out to contribute to and to learn from your other low coders. So thanks for spending the hour with us. We'll do it again next week. Actually, not only Low Code Campfire next Friday, but another episode of Low Code Cafe that we do every other week. And if anybody gets a duplicate email from me again, please let me know. I'm really trying not to have that happen, but hopefully I've got that cleared up. But anyway, very good. See you next week. And if you have a minute, hang around for Afterglow. We'll chat a little bit more here.
Have a nice weekend.